Welcome to Let's Plunge, the podcast where we move past small talk and into real connection. I'm Kathy, the creator of the Plunge app, and each episode, we'll dive into meaningful questions that open hearts, spark reflection, and remind us what it feels like to really listen. Whether I'm plunging with a guest or sharing my own dives, this is a space to slow down, ask deeper questions, and discover what's waiting beneath the surface. So, this is a segment where I want to talk things through, talk about a podcast, but don't have anyone to talk about the podcast with. So, me and you, babe. Okay, so I'm in the podcast of Diary of a CEO. Brilliant podcast, and it always inspires me. And sometimes he has guests on, and it's like they're begging me for Plunge. So this one had me yelling at the radio, at my phone, saying, "You want my app, you want my app." So I marked like a bunch of spots, and once I got to like 7 marks of places I wanted to go back to and process, I decided I better do a podcast on it. So this is the write-up that Stephen Bartlett gave, which is, "Why do your conversations keep going wrong?" Harvard behavioral scientist Professor Allison Wood Brooks, shout out to Allison, reveals the secrets to better communication, real connection, and negotiation skills, and difficult conversations. Okay, so I've marked the first spot where they start talking. Let's see what they say. So this is actually an episode on apparently disability, because it's moments like this that I am reminded I'm not much of a doer human. Like, my brain can problem solve at a very slow rate now compared to what it used to, but then my body can't respond. So there's so many things that I could do to trial and error and to fix this. But in this moment, I'm like, I need another human, like help, another human, so that I can be in creative mode and talk and download this shit that's coming through my head. So these are the uncomfortable moments. Super raw moments of feeling like I need 24-hour support, and it's not totally true. But these moments come up all day where I need to use the body. And it takes so much energy to process how to use it differently, and patience to wait for someone to come and support. And it always happens. I get support, but the emotional effort and energy I have to put towards these moments is so much. So I guess that's what we're meant to capture today, and I will have to go troubleshoot this. But first I have to get up, turn off the computer, so it's a lot. Round 1 of this was me adjusting to being a highly sensitive, disabled human. And now I've got my wits about me and can potentially bring in the podcast we wanted to talk about.
Have this flavor. It's a little surprising. I think often people think of these types of things as weakness, because it's like our instinct is to try to win and be right. And instead, what I'm saying is, no, hedge your claims. Show that you're uncertain about stuff. Validate their feelings. Divide yourself into disagreeing parts because you're not certain about anything, in order to keep the conversation going so that you have any shred of hope of persuading them over the longer term.
I remember Tali Sharrett telling me about a study. Either she told me, she's a neuroscientist in London, and she told me they put 2 people in a brain imaging scanner and got them to like look at photos and come to agreement on the price of something.
Yes.
And then eventually in these studies, I'm super paraphrasing here, she's probably like cringing.
I think I know what study you're talking about.
Oh, could you explain it instead?
Yeah. So they studied what lights up in your brain when you're in a situation of disagreement versus agreement. And it is actually more taxing to your mind when someone is disagreeing with you. It's like these neurological alarm bells go off, and all of a sudden, like you described, what was your phrase? My back goes up?
My back goes up. I get my back up, yeah.
That's it. It's actually in your brain. Your brain goes up. And it's hard. It's very hard to continue to engage once that process is underway.
Yeah.
Right? Some people call it amygdala hijacking, which is not quite right. But your brain does look different when you're in a situation of disagreement. So whatever we can do conversationally to sort of tamp that down so that your back doesn't go up is going to be quite helpful.
She showed pictures of the brain in these scans when someone disagrees with you. And I think, and I might be getting this inverted, that it was almost like the brain had shut down to receptiveness.
Yes.
In that moment. It was like, so when I wrote this chapter in my book called Do Not Disagree, it's an intentionally provocative chapter because people think, what do you mean? Never disagree with anybody?
No,
but I mean,
right.
Don't make the first thing you say, I disagree.
That's right. It can come later.
100%.
It can come later, but first has to come like, oh, it's so intriguing that you said that. I'm so fascinated. And it makes sense that you might feel that way. I wonder if, and then you can go on instead of, I disagree.
I met a girl called Anne who always said yes and instead of but.
Good.
And it shocked me because it was so different. Having a conversation with her, you say something to her and you go, I think this. And she goes, yes, and then she would make her point. And it could be a complete disagreement. But I noticed she was doing it and I loved it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we often think of the yes and as part of sort of improv, comedy, humor, etc. The comedians are really on to something much more profound about conversation broadly. If you can come from a sort of mindset or like spiritual place of yes and essentially you're saying I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt here even though what you're saying seems a little crazy. That's what is required to have great relationships. It's like we're all going to have these moments where someone feels something or says something that seems crazy, and if you react to it in an invalidating way, that's how we kill our relationships.
Do we need to kill the...
Okay. Well, so brilliant, and the crazy talk triggers me. We don't just throw that word around. So what I loved from this, though, is, when we get to the depth in Plunge, it's more listening, right? It's all about listening at that level, hearing each other, saying heard, giving snaps, right? But if you're doing this with a loved one, or you're doing it with me, or you're really emotionally aware and know how to use the app now as a tool for yourself, it's engaging in that conversation. Yes, and like I hear you, heard, and I think it's a healthy tool to have in the back of your mind to, one, first and foremost, hear when you're going, yeah, but because you're going against what they're saying, you have something to respond with, and you want to respond to the thing instead of listening to each other. So if you want to get to the depth of that conversation and have more connection with the person you're speaking to and with, then embarking on some of those tools. Okay, let's see what we have at 58. 57?
I want to, in that description, already you're moving quite quickly through topics as you're interacting with them. You know that you can't be circling the drain talking about the weather for long periods of time. So just briefly, let me say, we don't need to avoid small talk. In fact, it's a very important social ritual for people who are strangers to each other, people who haven't seen each other in a long time. It's where...
i.e. the blimp. Better socializing. Okay? It's not wrong. It's beautiful.
We land and say, oh, we're doing conversation now. The mistake that people make is they stay there too long. Way too long. Any more than like one beat of, oh my goodness, the weather's really warm. It's like summer in California.
Side note, I was talking to my mom yesterday, and my mom and my brother they may or may not stay in the weather talk a bit longer than the average cat. I personally understand the need and uniqueness to talk weather talk in Alaska. We're talking Alaska, where there's some life and death situations being in cold weather. So I understand weather talk. And I'm highly aggressively uninterested in weather talk, because I don't need to be talking about weather. So was I freaking out when she said this? Yes.
You need to make it more personal and move up this topic pyramid towards medium talk, deep talk quickly, right? So small talk is at the bottom. These are topics anybody can talk about. Tailored talk is more exciting, more personalized, more relevant to your interests. Deep talk is the peak of this pyramid. Only we can talk about this thing in this special way. Not every conversation is bound to get to the deep talk, but when it does, we should feel very appreciative. It's one of the most magical things about being humans.
Oh, Allison, you have my heart. Do you see how she's speaking right to me? Okay, let's jump ahead because I kept spazzing out.
It's an incredible research group at Stanford about 10 years ago. And you can just measure it, measure how many questions they ask on each date. People who ask more questions are enormously more likely to get asked on a second date. So much so, imagine you go on 20 first dates. And I say, okay, Stephen, you just have to ask one extra question on those 20 dates. If you do, you'll convert another date into a second date from just one question per date.
According to the data?
Yes. It's true for both men and women, but it's particularly helpful for men because they ask fewer questions on average than women do.
Really?
Yeah.
Significantly less?
Yes.
Really? I'm glad Stephen has the info now that he doesn't have to be surprised about that. Not as a judgment, it's just in the data. Like, we have data on this to prove what women know. Okay, good job. See what else we got. A few seconds later, we finally get into something else juicy for me. I hope you're following along with me and this is okay.
Of the language that the police officers were using. There are some really, not surprising but terrible findings that police officers were using less respectful language towards black citizens compared to white citizens. But sort of more broadly speaking, the interactions where they were using more respectful language went better. There were less conflicts. They drive away without further infractions. So the tiny choices we make in our language, and the language of respect varies along like hundreds of features of language, and it's a very gradient concept, but they have a real impact on how these interactions go. When we think about sort of like things like systemic racial bias, it comes from that kind of stuff. That's where it leaks out, is in the language we use with each other. So we can all learn to use more respectful language.
Do you think much about how our emotional state is impacting our ability to accomplish any of these things? Because I think, the days where I'm least likely to be kind are the days where I haven't slept.
Yeah.
I should probably be avoiding all conversations that day.
It's really, I think one of the biggest things I've learned from all of this work is that conversation is remarkably effortful, and it requires quite a bit of energy. Even if you know how to be a good conversationalist, often we don't have the energy to actually do it. Oh, I don't have the energy to brainstorm topics. I don't have the energy to continue asking follow-up questions. I'm going to let my egocentrism take over and boomer-ask till the sun goes down.
Boomers.
I feel so validated. And this is why I made and use the app. This is why I made Plunge. Sometimes I don't have the energy or the ability to run the conversation so that it can fuel both of us. But I'm usually just thinking from my own self, my own ego of like, how could I enjoy this conversation more? How could I enjoy this connection, right? Especially when I don't have a lot of energy. And I specifically wanted to give people a little bit more ability and a tool to talk in the deeper levels so that we could be a little bit more emotionally responsible with our language. Because even in the blimp, for me, right, when we start in the blimp, I'm getting all sorts of signals from the person. My nervous system is trying to read this other person, either flares up or doesn't, based on what they say about the weather. How about that weather, huh? Pretty scary. And they're not saying I'm scared. They're just giving me a newsreel ticker tape of you should worry about the weather that you can't see or feel in this moment, but this human is telling you how you should feel and the anxiety of what I'm going to feel when I go outside. So that's a really basic level. Not basic level. It's a really nuanced example to give when I feel like people are irresponsible when they're in the blimp. Socializing, you don't mean to be. People don't mean to be. I don't mean to be irresponsible when I'm in the blimp. I am very responsible when I'm in that blimp, and I'm likely coming up from the depth, right? So I'm actually not able to answer, so I'm usually listening more when I'm in the blimp. Or I look like I'm paralyzed. They're like, so what have you been up to? And I'm like, could you give me a little more about like how have I been feeling? What have I been doing? Because all those things are going to plummet me back down into the depth. So I needed to create this concept for myself so that I can understand how I navigate these different levels of talking that is leading to connection with another human. Okay, let's go to minute 33. That's where we're at. So hard to get exact, you guys.
Do you make sure you're moving in the right direction as the group?
And this is a great example because we often think of one-on-one conversation as the same task as a 3-person group. As soon as a third person pulls up a chair, whether it's a podcast co-host or a friend at a bar, that task, it's a categorically different task now because that third person has the power to take you on sidebars. It's no longer being co-created intimately between two minds. All of a sudden we get into this like coordination kerfuffle that can be very, very frustrating. I suspect that's part of why you don't like groups, actually, is that you like so strongly prefer one-on-one.
I'm sure that resonates with many. And I know a lot of people out there are using Plunge in groups. If I were to give any insight on when people are using it in groups, it's to use it cautiously, mindfully, and to just understand it's a group dynamic. It's not just safety, but it can be fun in a group of people you do know. It can be really fun to just stay in the blimp and talk about light subjects, but also there's a lot of risk in that because you're going to be exposed to a group that you either feel safe around or don't. So I just say that it's not harmless. That's what I would say. It's not like, hey, everybody should use Plunge in a group. That's not what I lead with. Like Stephen, I like intimate connection, and it gets harder in a group, but I personally do like groups when I can glue us all together, when I can get us all to talk together in a safe place. And I believe I carry that safety around me, unspoken, of like, hey, we're going to be kind to each other, and there's no shaming each other. Like, my favorite color is blue. Oh, the only one likes blue. You know, silly example. But again, it's not harmless to be sharing and being seen in a group. It's a big exposure for someone. Like a lot of my loved ones do not like to be on the mic, do not like to be in the spotlight and to speak to others. Like that's a huge deal for them. So just having people be mindful and compassionate and think about others in those kind of situations. And when in doubt, you're plunging with yourself. You're asking those deep questions, or you're asking someone you love or want to connect with deeper, or want to have a healthier connection with. You're talking one-on-one then. So last resort, even though it's first resort for a lot of people, is to use Plunge in more intimate settings. That's not to say it's not fun to use in group settings, family, whatever it is. Okay, let's go to 138.
People, because you're not listening, you're not asking enough follow-up questions. You're not asking enough questions at all. You're spending too much time talking about yourself.
Like, obviously this is what people, like, because the thing that I will remember the most is the conflict, the issue, the problem, the emotional situation.
Yeah.
People don't think they're boring. Like,
generally, it's hard to, it's a much harder thing to notice.
Yeah.
And it's a much harder thing to get feedback about because no one's going to be like, hey, bro, you're boring.
Yeah, and if the things I'm interested in, by way of me being interested, I think they're interesting.
Yeah.
So I think that, I'm just making stuff up, Pokemon, I think that's the most important, interesting thing in the world.
And let me now tell you everything I know about Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's like this misunderstanding of what the purpose of conversation is, not to say things we know at other people. Mm-hmm. It's about finding things we're both interested in and then learning everything that you know about that. Like, now I'm just going to, like, take a journey through your brain of everything that you think and feel about this thing that we're both interested in. And on that journey, we might land in this magical place where I'm learning stuff from you. You find me quite charming. We're laughing together and we feel seen and known and understood. But it's...
Exclamation point. She just has my heart. This conversation has my heart palpitating. It's so lovely and so validating. Let us just see. What I would add to that when myself, let's say I start talking human design with someone. Human design, first of all, for those of you that don't know, it's like astrology on steroids. It's another modality that has its own language. So when I start talking human design, I start taking people up in my blimp and then sometimes a spaceship, right? So if someone takes me up in a spaceship talking about weather that they love, even if they love it, they're taking me in a spaceship, or they're taking me into Pokemon spaceship, that's when I feel like I get aggressively disinterested because we didn't come up with a common thing yet. So I work really hard personally to find an interest in that thing. And then I can get curious and ask questions and they can talk about the thing they love. But I don't want them to just preach at me. I want to have some kind of back and forth of, let me interview you about this. If I have the energy. If I don't have the energy, then likely I'm not meant to be in conversation because one or both of us aren't able to connect in that moment. So just caution again. 153. Let's jump to 153.
In an auditorium and being on your phone. So literally turning to someone next to you and saying like, hey, I'm Allison. What's your name? Where are you from? Starting, right?
God, we don't do that in the UK. It's like creepy behavior.
It's okay. And that's, you do need to read the room, right? Like it's maybe not appropriate in all situations. It can be a shame. It depends on the norms. Once you are engaged with people, it's all of the talk things. What topics will they actually find helpful to them? Are you asking questions? Are you listening and asking follow-up questions? Are you moving beyond just trading things you know? Are you learning about each other in a way that feels revealing? That's where real relationships come from.
What are these here?
Yeah, let's find out.
I mean, that's a wrap on that, right? You understand why they're begging me for the app. It's not a solution. It's not a magic wand, but it is an incredible tool for people to use to help navigate human interactions. Being human is hard. Connecting can feel difficult. Connecting right now can feel unsafe in a lot of situations. Small talk can feel unsafe. So sometimes that turning, like she's saying, turning to the other person and saying, hi, my name is Allison. Maybe that's a little much. Getting eye contact with someone instead of looking down on our phones and just energetically with your eyes, unspoken, saying, I see you. I'm having a vulnerable moment. I see you. I'm looking at you. And I'll look away now. But it's human interaction. Being more conscious of moving physically with humans, whether you're in a crowd or what have you, that there is a lot of connection in that. And so putting up your energetic bubble to create safety if you are in a crowd and you don't actually want to connect with people and you don't want to take on their stuff. But let's say I'm in the household with my family. I physically can't play beside them, mirror them in their actions, do dishes with them, right? So we're not getting that realm of connection that so many of you can get and are getting but don't know it. So walking with your teenager, right, before you go into the big plunge thing, but why not have them read plunge questions of the blimp while you're walking? You're getting a lot of different versions of connection in that. And it's something, it's kind of like me right now redefining what exercise is. My acupuncturist, shout out to Sarah Chase. And she's helping me redefine what I think movement is. You know, she's like, this is movement. And that may seem dramatic. I'll say it seems dramatic to historic Kathy that thinks exercise looks a very specific way and that it's all or nothing. What I've learned from this disabled body that any kind of movement any kind of movement is, it matters to the body. And the body loves movement. So redefining that, redefining what connection is and moving with other humans, like movement with humans is connection with self and others as well. So we're asking for new, more expanded definitions of things like connection, conversation, exercise, right? Like, I know for me personally, I continue to try to shift out of all or nothing and get more into the 80-20. So stop talking about so dramatic of differences. Like, everybody does this, like, hyperbolic talking that I like to do. I want to get into the 20%. Like, if I just give 20% effort of this movement right now, it's enough. If I give 20% of intention towards connecting with other humans right now, it's enough. So maybe my 20% one day looks like I'm going to look eye to eye with a stranger. And that's it. You looked up and then you look down. Okay, that was your effort. Like, let that be enough, right? Maybe another one is I'm going to say hi to a stranger, right? Whatever level of safety and still pushing yourself out of that comfort zone is. But I know with many people around me having their vulnerability muscles in atrophy, the smallest of acts of being seen or connecting out in the world is a lot right now. So get some tools, use Plunge, find ways that it can enhance your life and create safety for our nervous systems and connection with our loved ones. Thank you so much.